These are the lecture notes for Chapter 1, Biology, the Study of Life. This is our introductory chapter in general biology. When you look at the lecture notes and you are taking notes, I try to highlight in yellow the important parts that you need to pay attention to. We are going to, in Chapter 1, we are going to focus on the first 3 sections, which are the characteristics of living things, evolution and classification, and then the scientific method. So first, the first slide, just make sure that you know the definition of biology. Bio means living things or life. Logy is study of. So biology means the study of life. And that is what this general biology course is going to be about, is studying living things. In General Biology 1, we're going to focus on cells. The first 2 chapters actually after this one are chemistry, the chemistry that is associated with living things. And then cells and cell division and genetics and evolution. So what you're seeing on this slide is an image of 5 different types of living things from 5 different groups of living things. You have bacteria, which are from the domain bacteria. These bacteria look to be E. coli because they're oval shaped. They are taken with an electron microscope. This is an electron micrograph image. It's showing the E. coli 19,000 times bigger than what they actually are. The microscopes that we use in the biology lab can magnify up to 1,000 times bigger. So that's what you're seeing here is a paramecium from the domain Eukarya, kingdom Protista, and this is a single-celled organism, but it is much bigger than bacteria, and it also has a nucleus where bacteria do not, and you're looking at it multiplied. I know it says 1,000x here, but it would really be times 10, so that would be 1,000 times bigger than what it really is. And then this is a moral from the domain Eukarya, kingdom Fungi. It's an edible fungus. Then you have a sunflower from the domain Eukarya, kingdom Plantae, and then the whale is from domain Eukarya, kingdom Animalia. So we have a large diversity of living things here. We're representing almost all the major groups of living things. And then it says, despite diversity, all living things share the same basic characteristics. So this is a list of the basic characteristics that all living things share, and then we will go into detail on all the different characteristics. There's organization. Basically, all living things are organized they're either composed of one cell or they're multicellular, and those cells are organized into tissues and organs. But we will go into that organization, the levels of organization a little bit more in the next slide. Living things require materials. Often we call these nutrients and vitamins and minerals. And living things also require energy. Plants get their energy from sunlight, and other living things get their energy from breaking down chemicals. Living things need to maintain homeostasis, which is a balance, an internal balance in certain conditions inside their cells, conditions like temperature and pH. Living things respond to stimuli. Various living things respond in different ways to different stimuli, but for example, you have the response to for a plant, the response to light would be, that it tends to respond positively and grow toward light. Living things are able to reproduce. Living things grow and develop. Living things adapt and evolve. And we're going to cover what all of those characteristics actually mean. But first, we're going to start with the characteristic of organization. Life or living things are organized. Living things, just like non-living things, are begin with the basic, the smallest chemical substances, which are atoms. So the smallest level of organization would be the atom. And then atoms are combined into molecules, smaller molecules and larger molecules. And those molecules are combined to make cell parts called organelles. And eventually you end up with enough molecules combined and organized in such a way that you get a cell. The cell is the basic unit of structure and function of all living things. And living things can be unicellular, like a bacterium or a paramecium. That means they're made of a single cell. Or they can be multicellular. And if they're multicellular, their levels of organizations get more complex. So as biological complexity increases, each level acquires new emergent properties. Emergent properties are just characteristics that are dependent on the level of organization. So like, let me think of one. So they depend on the interactions of the different levels of organization. So organ systems interact to maintain homeostasis. The nervous system interacts with the cardiovascular system. You couldn't have that property at the level of the cell because you don't have organ systems at the level of the cell. So emergent properties are just properties that depend on the level of organization becoming more complex. All right, so, but the main thing, just to keep things simple, the main thing is that you need to know the levels of organization in order. So you need to know that living things, the level of organization begins, the simplest level is the atom. So for example, here's an atom of oxygen shown here. And then methane is a combination of carbon and hydrogen atoms. And so this would be an example of a molecule. So combinations of atoms make molecules. Molecules combine to make cell parts, which is not listed here, but they're called organelles, like the nucleus in this nerve cell. The chloroplast in this plant cell. But the cell would be the next level of organization, and then cells combine to make tissues. Here you're looking at nerve cells that have combined to make nervous tissue, and leaf cells combine to make mesophyll tissue, which is the tissue of the leaf that carries out photosynthesis. Then tissues combine to make up organs. Here you're seeing an example in the animal. The organ is the brain, and then an example of an organ in a plant is a leaf. Organs combine, groups of organs combine to make organ systems. Here you're looking at the nervous system in this elephant and the shoot system, which is the organ system which includes everything above the ground in this plant. And then all the organ systems together combine to make the organism. This organism is an elephant, and it has 11 organ systems. This organism shown here on the right is a tree, and it's got two main organ systems. The shoot system is above the ground, and the root system is below the ground. So know these levels of organization in order: atom, molecule, cell, tissue, organ system, organism. And then we can add to that when we put more than one organism together in a group. So a species is defined as a group of similar interbreeding organisms. They're able to interbreed and produce organisms, reproduce organisms of the same species. And technically, the definition of a species is that in an animal, it's animals that can interbreed and produce offspring, and those offspring are also fertile. They're also able to interbreed. Because we do have species that will interbreed and different species that will interbreed and produce offspring. But unless the offspring are fertile themselves and also able to reproduce, we don't say that those, the male and female that produce them are of the same species. For example, you got a horse and a donkey, which are two different species. They can technically mate and produce a mule, but that mule is not able to reproduce. So the horse and the donkey are not technically the same species. But anyway, species means they can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. A population is defined as the members of the same species that live in the same area. So we could say the population of elephants in Africa, because this is an African ecosystem. But we wouldn't be able to say the population of, we could say the population of humans on the earth. But we wouldn't be able to say like the population of birds in Africa because there's so many different species of birds. We'd have to name the species, okay? These are acacia trees. So we could say the population of acacia trees in the African savanna. But we wouldn't be able to say the population of trees because that's not technically a population. The community is all the living things in that ecosystem. So if we named all the animals and all the plants and all the fungi and all the bacteria, all the different protozoans, that would be the community in the African savanna. And then the ecosystem is the community plus the environment. So the entire ecosystem that's being shown here is the African savanna. And the biosphere includes all the ecosystems on the earth. All the areas on the earth where living things can exist. So make sure that you know the levels of organization from the simplest, which is atom, all the way up to the most complex, which is biosphere. Atom, molecule, cell, tissue, organ system, organism, population, because technically species just is part of population, community, ecosystem, biosphere. And then you have definitions. The biosphere is the zone of air, land, and water where organisms exist. So it includes all the ecosystems on the earth. Ecosystem is community plus the physical environment or habitat. So basically it's all the living things and all the non-living things in that particular area. Community is all of the populations or all the living things within that ecosystem. The population is all the members of the same species within that ecosystem. And of course, species is a group of similar interbreeding organisms. And then we've gone over these terms: organism, organ system, organs, tissues, cells, cell, molecules, atoms. If the word organelle is in there, make sure you know it goes between molecule and cell, because molecules combine to make cell parts called organelles. And I'll write that out. Hold on. It's not working for me. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, O-R-G-A-N, sorry about that, E-L-L-E-S. So molecules combine to make organelles like the nucleus, and then organelles combine to make the cell. So sometimes you'll have molecule, organelle, cell. That will be in your list that you have to put in order. Okay, so the second characteristic of living things we want to talk about is living things require materials and energy. Metabolism is the word that means all the chemical reactions that occur in a cell. We will have 2 chapters on chemical reactions. One chapter is on photosynthesis, which occurs in a plant cell. And then the other chapter is on cellular respiration, which is a chemical reaction that occurs in all living cells. So when you take all of the breakdown reactions and all of the synthesis or buildup reactions and put them together, that is the metabolism of the cell, of the organism. You do need to know that the sun is the ultimate source of energy for nearly all life on Earth, not just plants. Plants, algae, and some other organisms capture solar energy and perform photosynthesis. And photosynthesis converts solar energy into food, or the chemical energy of carbohydrates.